violate the communications protocols.
The first and most important is the carbon tax.
Good evening, I'm Alice Piper and welcome to another episode of Rollout. Coming up tonight, Australians solidify a central position in the international debate regarding the regulation of online piracy. Tensions in Canberra continue to mount as the Labor Party once again calls for the removal of Bronwyn Bishop as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And finally, Rollout puts the promises of the Abbott government under the political microscope as rumours of planned budget cuts to the ABC and SBS networks continue to circulate. Joining me on the panel tonight, we have Campbell Elmer, a political blogger and staff writer for Upstart magazine.
Good evening, Alice.
And sitting next to Campbell, we have Melbourne-based freelance journalist Luke Sale.
Good, Alice.
As always, you can join us on Twitter at #Rollout or online at our interactive blog, rollout.tv. First up today, Australians have become the world's worst online pirates. The number of Australians illegally downloading content has hit a record high. According to the website Torrent Freak, Australians now account for 10% of global downloads, with the Season 4 premiere of popular TV show Game of Thrones having been downloaded by Aussies at least 3 million times.
Have you ever bought or rented a videotape that wasn't quite right?
Torrent Freak also says the most popular torrents for the HBO series reached 160,000 peers simultaneously, an international record for television piracy. Melburnians are the country's worst offenders, accounting for almost 3% of global downloads. So we have sent our roving reporter, our feet on the street, Christina Olver, to La Trobe University to find out why this is. Christina, what has the public had to say?
Hi Alice, thanks. So as you said, Australians are the world's worst pirates, and it's especially popular during the young people's demographic. So today I talked to some students to see what they had to say. Do you personally pirate online?
Well, yes, occasionally. Yeah, I'm pretty guilty of downloading lots of music.
Why do you do that?
Because I'm a cheapskate, because it's free and it's easy.
Australians are the biggest pirators in the world. Why do you think this is?
Because in the US, most shows are from the US, so they probably get shown there first, and it takes a while for them to be shown in Australia.
I don't know, maybe because shows come out faster in other countries, so we want to keep up to speed and stuff.
I think that sort of comes down to availability and what's available to us compared to what's available to everyone else. Like, for instance, on American TV, they get it for free, but here we have to buy Foxtel or cable or something like that.
Would you still pirate if you knew that it was being enforced and punished regularly?
Probably not. It's just because I guess it's so easy to get away with now that it's just so easy to do. I don't really feel there's any way to enforce it. You're going to have to arrest a lot of people.
Yes, I probably would. I still park places without a parking permit, so...
Have you heard of Netflix?
I haven't.
What if I told you there was a way to pay $8 a month and have unlimited access to all your movies and TV shows?
Oh, yeah, well, that's pretty affordable. So.
Do you think people would pirate less if you did that?
I feel like probably some people would, but then again, others still probably wouldn't be willing to pay.
I'm not sure, because people are lazy. They'd probably still do what they've been doing all along anyway, even because some people just they're $8 still more than what I could do for free, so.
See, Aussies don't like waiting for their TV shows, so I think it's going to be a tough habit to break. Alice?
Thank you for that, Christina. So, Campbell, tell us how you feel about the stance on online piracy.
I kind of feel that it might be a bit unjustified because, like a lot of people said in that Vox Pop, content delay is the biggest issue. And like Christina said, it's going to be a hard habit to break. And I mean, the problem is that with the internet now and social media, as soon as something happens, you find out about it. So unless we see it straight away, it's just ruined for us and people don't want to wait.
Well then, Luke, how do you think that issue can be rectified?
Well, I think the Netflix has been established in America. I believe you can subscribe to Netflix for $8 a month.
You can.
And then I think you can have unlimited access to everything that they have on their website. So maybe Netflix is like growing into Australia, or Australia establishing something similar to Netflix could be a way that we get around this.
We did hear one student say that she wouldn't pay for Netflix purely because she said she was too lazy to do it. So Campbell, what are your thoughts on that?
Look, I can understand that, but I mean, there's always going to be people like that, no matter what. I mean, when there was VCRs and VHS, people were just buying pre-recorded stuff that they recorded off the TV. I mean, there's always going to be an issue with piracy and, you know, copyright issue when it comes to music and video, but it's just something you can't avoid.
Well, it's interesting you do say copyright, because the Australian newspaper reported that our Attorney General, George Brandis, he said that the government was considering a rewrite of the Copyright Act, and this is purely to allow movie studios to seek injunctions to block websites distributing pirated material. Do you think that's going to work?
Oh, I think it certainly could work, but then again, I think if the websites are built in America, then I believe that the American government has to be the ones that block that. I don't think the Australians can block Americans sourcing these websites to Australians.
There's also an issue with that because one website is blocked, another one can pop up instantly.
Well, that's exactly right, Alice. I mean, as soon as one thing gets blocked, I mean, the guy that used to run Mega Video, which is a very popular streaming site back in the day, about a couple of years ago, he actually got extradited from New Zealand to the US, and he got sentenced 50 years federal jail. So that hasn't stopped people hosting these websites. And I mean, you can try all you want, but should you really be blocking websites for any reason? Isn't that just another form of not allowing people to express their freedom of speech or freedom of the internet? I think it's a very risky slope.
Well, you could argue freedom of speech, but it's illegal. When does that element of freedom of speech, where is that line crossed?
Well, at the moment, I think just streaming or downloading copyrighted material, of course, it's illegal. But as Campbell said, it's going to be a very hard problem to stop, because as soon as you block one website, and then I think then there'll be just a chain of websites starting up to continue to source the same content that people are after. So
I think we could say about this issue, there's really never going to be a problem fixer.
There's no point.
There's no point.
Because, I mean,
it's very hard to stop.
Yeah, it's going to be too hard to stop. But I mean, they're just going to keep popping up. These sites are going to be like weeds. You're never going to get rid of them. You can try as you might, but it's just fruitless. And people should be really spending their time and effort towards more practical things, because if it really was a danger to the music and movie industry, then how are they still raking in the profits? How are they still running? You know, it's been happening for years now, and you don't really see them complaining.
Well, I think we should move on to our next topic. It's a topic that seems to be constantly plaguing our news forums, no matter whose name is attached to the issue. I'm referring to the differing levels of biased behaviour displayed by Australia's parliamentary speakers, and most recently the Coalition's Bronwyn Bishop. Being accused as unprofessional by the Labor Party, with the party attempting to pass a motion of no confidence in the Speaker. Bishop has also been hit with labels such as incompetent and inconsistent by the manager of opposition business, Tony Burke.
The former leader of the House, who is now apparently the acting manager of government, opposition business, has given the chair advice. The question is that the motion be agreed to.
But you need to recognise, Madam Speaker, that you are meant to be impartial. You need to recognise, Madam Speaker, that the office you hold is greater and more important than your own political rhetoric.
Miss Bishop is battling to keep her speakership as Labor continues its campaign to strip her of the title. Some members of the Australian public have joined the Labor Party in their crusade, with an anonymous Australian voter writing an open letter to Miss Bishop asking her to resign as Speaker, citing things such as her alleged bias towards the people to the right in her parliament, claiming it is a shameful affront to the dignity of Australian parliamentary process.
A Speaker must be in love with democracy. They must be in love with democracy. They cannot use their role as a mechanism to wield power and promote privilege or protect privilege. That is not what this chamber is for. The 150 people elected to this chamber have a solemn duty to their electorates, and it's about democracy. Now, I've never seen the member for Mackellar sitting in the chair and being fair and impartial and bringing that. I think the Prime Minister said that the role should restore dignity. Well, I take offence at that, because the 43rd Parliament had dignity. Just because you didn't act in a dignified way does not mean that the Parliament didn't have dignity.
So, Luke, what are your thoughts on our parliamentary speaker? Do you think she's displaying bias towards the Labor Party?
Without being a political expert myself, I would say certainly yes. From the YouTube clips I've seen, I believe she's thrown out a number of Labor ministers for merely answering a question.
It would be 99 at this point.
99 Labor speakers, that's right. Well, I think I saw on YouTube, I think she threw out Kate Ellis, I believe, just for answering a question the way she wanted it answered, and it provided the answer that she wanted, but then she told her to get out. So I believe, yes, bias is certainly what she's doing at the moment.
Well, Miss Bishop, when she was elected towards the end of last year, I'm quoting her right now, she said, "I certainly feel that the Parliament itself is entitled to have dignity returned to it. That doesn't mean it won't be a robust place, but it does mean that it will have the dignity it has been lacking in the last little while." Now, I'm guessing by saying the last little while, she's referring to previous speakers. However, as we just said, she's thrown out 99 Labor ministers at this point in time. Campbell, do you think dignity's been restored?
Look, I often get accused of Liberal bashing, but I feel like the Liberals seem to bash themselves. And I think this is another instance of this, because basically what's happening is that they've installed this woman for what I think is the most undignified reason. Basically, just because she's been in the federal parliament for 20 years, she was in the New South Wales state parliament for a long time. She's a political veteran. And she wasn't put on the ministry, so Tony Abbott's thought, oh crap, what are we going to do with her? So he stuck her on the speaker role, which I think was just a completely wrong move. And I think, honestly, maybe he was just trying to score some feminist points for installing a woman somewhere else.
Also appointing her as speaker, her and Mr Abbott have been long-time friends. There's a little bit of dodgy business going on there, you could say.
Absolutely, I think that's definitely an issue. I think that was the first thing I noted when I heard that she was friends with him. I think that if you're going to have a speaker in Parliament to deliberate between the two parties, I think it's one of them has to be, the person who it is has to be impartial, and she hasn't been so far. And given her previous history with Mr Abbott and the fact that she was part of the Liberal government, then I would think that a change has to be made.
She also did say when she was appointed that this was going to be capping off her career. So she's on the out. You could say being parliamentary speaker is going to be her last governmental role.
See, that's just what I just said. It's just all for her career. It's not for the benefit of the Australian people. Her pursuing titles is at, the disdain of the Australian voter. I mean, no one wants to see the Parliament be abused like this, just for the fact that she can go to her deathbed and go, oh, I was a parliamentary speaker, I did something important.
Well, I mean, like we've been saying, parliamentary speakers need to be impartial. How is anything supposed to get resolved about the running of our country if the parliamentary speaker's throwing out all the ministers to sort of blow up her own head and exercise her own power?
Correct, Alice. Yeah, I think referring to YouTube again. I believe sometimes you see the Labor government asking Tony Abbott a pretty testing question, and then he gives an answer which doesn't really answer the question at all. Labor gets fired up, and then Miss Bishop then ends up defending Mr Abbott and tells him that he doesn't have to answer the question, and then Labor ministers end up getting thrown out. So it's no good at the moment.
So what are our final thoughts on this topic?
Change is needed.
Yeah,
for me.
Definitely. I think the Liberal Party is not doing so well in the polls, and I think rectifying this issue would really, really help them.
But change in what way? Appointing a new speaker? I think, as we've seen, previous speakers have also been accused of biased behaviour.
Appointing a speaker through the normal parliamentary process. I mean, he did just completely bypass this one by not allowing a vote. You said she was elected, but the fact is that she wasn't.
It's right, he did bypass all
he
parliamentary
just installed her
process.
himself. And what does that say?
And like you say, he might be trying to score a few feminist points by doing so. You do have to feel a bit bad for Tony. He's got...
I do pity the man, yeah.
He's got 3 daughters and sisters and a wife. He just still gets accused of being a misogynist.
I don't think having women family members means that you can't be misogynist, but I don't know. I think he's just got a lot of work ahead of him.
So, all in all,
he needs to change. He needs
Change
to change
in
the
what
speaker.
way?
Well, I think the Labor and Liberal parties both need to agree on a speaker. I don't think that happened. I don't know too much about politics myself, but I think having the government in power appointing their own speaker is just seems wrong to me. I believe.
Well,
both sides need to agree on.
Peter
what
Slipper
happens.
was a coalition MP, but he was put there by the Labor government. So I mean, there's proof that there can be a cross-parliament speaker who is fair. I mean, I don't know why this is such an issue. It shouldn't even be an issue.
Well, Campbell, can you say in one sentence what needs to happen?
Tony Abbott needs to start making some responsible decisions for the benefit of the Australian public and not his own party.
All right, well, don't go anywhere, viewers. Rollout will be back with more shortly.
So, Mr Albanese, how do you think you've gone as Leader of the House? Well, thank you for that question. I think that the government's done extremely well.
If it's out of context, what is the context?
Madam Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is the Mr Potato Head of Australian politics.
Suppository of all wisdom.
Of course it's going to get a big run. Mr Howard physically falling over.
Welcome back to Rollout. So, Luke, this week you caught up with RACV's General Manager of Roads and Traffic.
That's right, Alice. Yes, I ventured down to his Noble Park office and had a chat to him about what was going to be like a profile piece, but then it turned into a rather in-depth chat about the East-West Link announcement.
Well, the RACV has welcomed the $1.5 billion that the federal government has committed to the second stage of the East-West Link. We think the entire project is very important for Melbourne, not just for commuters travelling across the city, but also freight to and from the Port of Melbourne, which is Australia's busiest port. Well, RACV has supported the project. We think it's important to have a high capacity, large second crossing of the Maribyrnong River to provide some extra capacity and an option should something happen to the Westgate Bridge or the Westgate Freeway or the Monash Freeway. There's an alternative route to ensure that the city doesn't grind to a halt whenever something happens, whether it be a crash or something more significant. So a second major east-west route to cater for the huge growth in the western suburbs, the massive amount of freight traffic in and out of the port, and the need for the city to have a reliable east-west route, or an alternative east-west route, I should say. Well, RACV is a member-based organisation. We use market research to determine what projects or programs or road safety initiatives members prioritise as being the most important for them. So we undertake a lot of market research to determine those priorities. Well, there's always going to be a range of views. There's the people that are directly affected by a project, and there's processes in place, planning processes, to identify those concerns and work out what's required. Whether it's something like compensation or an adjustment or a change can be made to a project. And really that's not so much RACV's business. We identify the need for a project, but it's up to the government of the day to shape the project to meet all the competing issues in a local area and a broader area. We're simply conveying what the bulk of our membership believe is necessary, and the government of the day has to deliver a project that addresses the issues in a way that meets all the statutory and regulatory requirements, and it's fair to the community as well.
Do you also advocate a railway being built in the Doncaster division?
The Doncaster area rapid transit is the bus connection to the Doncaster area, and there is a proposal for a rail link to Doncaster as well. We're of the view that it's not the highest priority. We think that there's significant opportunities for an excellent bus service by reducing some of the delays to the existing Doncaster area rapid transit. They could deliver a much higher capacity, more frequent service, almost from people's doors of their houses, feeding down to the rapid transit along the Eastern Freeway and into the city. It does require some changes to be made to the route between the end of the Eastern Freeway and the CBD to reduce some of the delays due to parked cars and traffic. But we think bus lanes can be provided by eliminating some curbside parking to ensure that a very rapid bus service can be provided very quickly and relatively cheaply to service the Doncaster and Manningham area. We think that's a better solution, at least for the short to medium term, than putting money into a rail connection. We asked for a range of projects, including, if I recall correctly, the Airport Rail Link, the East-West Link, the complete East-West Link, the Metropolitan Rail project, as well as completing the North East Link in the Metropolitan Ring Road from Greensborough down to the Eastern Freeway. We're delighted that with the announcements that have been made, that the government is significantly progressing many of those major projects. If I recall correctly, we also asked for more funding for road maintenance, and the government announced on the weekend an extra $130 million for road maintenance and repairs. We also asked for a commitment to remove level crossings, I think, as well as some projects, or particularly in the Dandenong Rail Corridor, which both parties, the state government and the opposition, have committed to doing in different ways as well. So we're very happy with what the state government is indicating they will do. The opposition is certainly doing many projects of interest to us as well, and significantly addressing some of those same issues that we've identified. And we're sure that as the state election gets closer, there'll be more and more announcements by both sides, and we look forward to hearing the details of those proposals. Well, I think the government has said that it'll be roughly a 5-year construction project, if I recall their announcements. I don't know any more than what's been in the press announcements for the first stage, and I'm not across the detail. I think until we see the state budget papers being released in early May, we won't know for sure how long the second stage will take. They're very big projects. We're really looking forward to the state budget and subsequent announcements, just to see how long the complete East-West Link, as well as projects like the Airport Rail Link and the Metropolitan Rail Capacity Project, will take to deliver, and what the government's planning to do with things like grade separations of railway level crossings as well.
Well, Dave, thank you for taking your time today, and best of luck for the future.
Thank you very much.
That was General Manager for Roads and Traffic for the RACV, David Jones. Now, Luke, how do you feel about what he had to say about the East-West Link?
Very good announcement from the government for the further funding the other morning, but I think Mr Jones sort of ducked around the question we had about about those who have an opposition to the East-West Link progressing with more funding. I think he sort of went through the process about how people can go opposing to any other decisions the RACV will make. He didn't really talk about the opposition to the East-West Link specifically, so I think there are people who are going to be against it, and I think the fact that he places it in such a high priority, having an alternate link, could be a problem with some people. I feel as though finances for the government could be divided elsewhere.
So, moving on now to Rollout's most popular segment among viewers, the audit. Controversial topic this week. Dissecting a controversial topic this week, let's take a look at the proposed funding cuts to the ABC and SBS networks. Prime Minister Tony Abbott is set to break a key election promise by cutting funding to these networks. The only question remaining, how much money will his government redistribute? On the night before the 2013 election, Mr Abbott made some stark claims regarding his party's intentions with this year's budget.
Well, what about public broadcasters, Mr Abbott? Another soft target? Are the ABC and SBS in the firing line?
I trust everyone actually listened to what Joe Hockey has said last week and again this week. No cuts to education, no cuts to health, no change to pensions, no change to the GST, and no cuts to the ABC or SBS.
But it now seems our PM is reneging on his promises, but just by how much, we don't know. Communications Minister Malcolm Turnbull has commented on the potential for the coalition government to remove certain protections from governmental efficiency audits both the ABC and SBS have previously been safeguarded from.
Mr Temple, what is this review about? What's the objective?
Well, the objective is to get a really good assessment of the cost effectiveness of both of our public broadcasters, ABC and SBS, and just to look at what would be the most efficient ways in terms of cost effectiveness of delivering their programming. So it's not designed to look at the content of news or whether your stories have been, good, bad or indifferent. It's not about giving programming advice about whether a particular drama should be run or not. It's just about the cost of keeping the show on the road, the back of house.
Removing these protections from the ABC and SBS could potentially lead to a 2.5% drop in funding in the next budget. Campbell, tell us what you think about the PM's backflip.
Unfortunately, it was a pretty predictable backflip. I mean, it's no secret in this country that people of the right wing actually have such a problem with the ABC. And my view of this is because we have such a large portion of this country's media dedicated towards furthering the Liberal agenda that anything that isn't specifically doing that is automatically biased towards the left. And I think it's quite the opposite. And I mean, the ABC has very stringent measures to make sure that specific politicians from specific sides of the parliament get a certain amount of airtime. They don't over-analyse one and under-analyse another. And I think, this is just deja vu, really, because this has happened before. They've done so many audits on the ABC and the SBS, especially under the Howard era. I think they did 2 under Howard. And they all said that he needed to give them more funding, but instead he cut them. Even before the audits were even finished, he decided to cut them funding $10 million a year. And that was just really a bad move, I think, because it's just the most... the ABC has nothing to gain. It doesn't need to make entertainment news because it doesn't have commercials. And I really think cutting funding is just not the way to go.
Luke, what do you think about the funding cuts?
Proposed funding cuts, I might add.
That's right. The budget hasn't been announced yet.
But it has definitely not been announced yet, even though, I'm not trying to defend the Liberal government, but obviously it'd be a wrong decision if they were to cut the funds to ABS.
But this is what the Liberal government does. It puts up inquiries so it doesn't have to make decisions, and then once it has the inquiries, it goes, this is what the inquiry says.
We have to remember these cuts aren't going to just be to television. The ABC provides vital avenues to country towns in, say, radio. Australia is prone to bushfires. We have a very large bushfire season where many homes and people have been lost in the past few years. People tune into these stations to get everything they need to know. If these funding cuts happen, what's going to happen there? Is money going to be taken away? Is this source of information going to be stripped back? Are these people going to be able to access what they need?
Exactly. The managing director of the ABC, Mark Scott, said no area of the ABC would be safe if funding cuts were to happen. The recently outgoing SBS chairman, his name escapes me now, but he said that mixing a commercial funded network, which is the SBS are, I think they get their 1/3 of their funding from commercial advertising, whereas the ABC don't have any of it at all. So there's a problem straight up. And then, as you said, regarding the bushfire season and the regional radio links that the ABC have, Twitter isn't the only news source that people can get information from. Even though
you'd hope. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I think the ABC still need to have links to the regional.
So, gentlemen, why don't you wrap up for everybody in a sentence or two? What do you think should happen?
No cuts. Number one. If there were going to be cuts, then an ABC and SBS merger should not be on the cards.
Campbell?
I think if this audit wasn't set up to fail, if it is actually a legitimate process, then more funding actually needs to go towards the ABC. I mean, I'm really worried about what's going to happen to things that aren't news-based, like the Triple J network, because, people do rely on that for Australian music. So I'm just really sad if that gets cut too.
Well, I think we have to leave that one there. That's all we have time for you tonight, viewers. Remember, you can tweet us at #rollout with any comments on tonight's stories, or go to our interactive blog at rollout.tv and let us know what you think there. Thank you to our panellists, Campbell Elmer and Luke Sale.
My pleasure.
And thank you for watching Melbourne. I've been your host, Alice Piper. Tune in next week. But for now, it's time for us to roll out.